right now, we have the privilege, and this evening, we have the privilege of just sharing space and celebrating some fantastic, fantastic women that represent us. So on behalf of our director, Regina Malveaux, who couldn't be with us this evening, our fantastic staff, our hardworking staff and volunteers, and the other wonderful 8 commissioners that I have the honor and privilege to serve with, I welcome you to our fantastic panel, The Inspiring Women Lead, featuring these fabulous, fabulous Black women who are elected to represent not only their respective districts, but as I say it, they represent me, they represent us, women across Washington State, fiercely, fabulously, with strength, grace, dignity, and all of the above, and so much more. And I'm so honored to welcome them here today and all of you to hear from them, their stories, and what makes them tick each and every day and do this tough, tough work. And so with us today, we have Senator Tawana Nobles representing the 28th District, my fabulous friend, Representative Deborah Intiman, representing the 47th, the wonderful, wonderful Jamila Taylor representing the 30th District, and the fabulous April Berg representing the 44th. Before I get started, I would be remiss if I didn't share the mission of the Washington State Women's Commission, and that is to improve the life of every woman by ensuring equitable opportunities and removing systemic barriers through engagement, advocacy, and public policy while being inclusive of our diverse populations. And I think that speaks to the work that every single one of the women that are here with us today try to do, not only in their day jobs, but in their personal lives as well, because I know all of these women and the remarkable work that they do. Our vision as the Washington State Women's Commission is every woman is healthy, safe, prosperous, and empowered to achieve their full potential. So with that, welcome friends. I'm so glad you're here and taking the time out of your busy schedules, because I already know how busy each of you are. And I'm so honored to share space with you and have this conversation with you today. And so instead of doing the traditional long introductions, I would love for you all to just start with the first question. You can say your intro spiel from there. So for each panelist, and Representative Berg, we'll start with you. Can you describe your personal leadership journey? I think that's a fabulous introduction for all of you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you, Michelle, and everyone at the Women's Commission for having us here today. This is a fantastic event. And I'm just really happy to be here as a representative. So I'm State Representative April Berg. I represent the 44th. I like to tell folks where that is because not everybody knows. So I'm north of Seattle. I'm the city of Mill Creek, Lake Stevens, the city of Snohomish, a little bit of Marysville, and a little bit of Everett. So just think due north, and that's where I am from downtown. So that said, my journey kind of, it'll let you know kind of where I'm coming from, right? So I'm a girl from the South Side of Chicago originally, and I ended up going to school at Oregon State University. I tell you that because it's important to my political story. I was the first African-American student body president of Oregon State University, back then a Pac-10 college. I was the 4th woman. I was one of the few women that were elected not during a war, right? So think of World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and then I kind of came rolling in. And it was important because I realized that representation, lived experience, all of that mattered in the political process. It wasn't without trauma. Needless to say, I was one of 200 Black students on campus and one of only 50 not in a D1 scholarship. So when I ended up winning that election, hard fought, I ended up getting targeted by the Aryan Nation and spent a little bit of time in Kevlar. And I'll tell you, it's heavy. And so those threats, I don't take lightly. I didn't take lightly then. I don't take lightly now, because unfortunately, you fast forward about 30 years, and unfortunately, we're having the same conversation. So as I represent my district, which is a suburban district, being a Black woman, a Black mother in the suburbs, that's brought a different type of trauma, but unfortunately it was very recognizable to me. So with my kids, and I'll tell you straight off, I've got 6 of them, 2 UW grads, 2 at Western, and 2 still in high school. And I started my political journey in this iteration as a school board director. And I was on the Edmonds School Board, and now I'm currently on the Everett School Board. And that's where I position myself to run for my current position as a state representative, representing educational communities, representing communities of color, representing women in politics. And saying that we need to do more, we need to be more, we need to be at more of the tables. And one of the things I say with kind of a heavy heart is that, you know, I'm living in a city, the city of Mill Creek. We have a fantastic city council that has 1 woman on it. Right. And that's, in today's day and age, you kind of go, wait, what? And that's a thing. It's real. We need to be at all of those tables. And so that's my journey. That's where I'm at right now in this space. I'm hoping to do more for kids, for working families, for women in leadership, but I'm using my voice as a Black woman in leadership to just really expose and show folks that everybody, no matter where you're at, if you're in the heart of Seattle or in the suburbs like me, you can lead. So a little bit about myself.
Let me remember to press the mute button. Thank you, Representative Burke. That's fantastic start and amazing journey. And I love hearing it. Senator Nobles, our only Black senator representing us. Can you share your story?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me tonight. It's so great to be in a space filled with other women. And it's also great to be with my soror, my sorority sister, Michelle, and other Greek women, and just share a space with Black women, my colleagues in the legislature. It is quite an honor to be the only Black senator currently in Washington State, and I attribute my leadership journey to many things. And I want to give a shout out to my LA and her mom. So hi, Danielle, and hi, Mama Cascaro. But I was the oldest in my household. And so my leadership journey started with bossing around my brothers, being a leader in our household. My mom struggled with addiction. And so I also had early responsibilities, taking care of my brothers, keeping our family safe, taking care of our mom, having to be a leader in our household and just look out for other folks in our community. And so I became more confident, confident in my voice, confident standing up for what's right and speaking out. You know, when I was much younger, you know, fighting for my brothers and having their backs. And that allowed me to, you know, run for any type of open office or seat, anything from prom queen to student government in school, but also just being willing to lead in community and volunteer and show up even as a young person. I share a story of when we were experiencing homelessness and we lived in a shelter. I took on a leadership role as a teenager in that shelter, and I volunteered at the front desk. I do remember having to, not having to, but I wanted to do room checks and make sure all the adults had done their chores and had, the folks were just, sorry, I'm thrown off by the comment. Let's give a shout out to the man that's in the audience. It's not about not including men, but I was excited tonight to spend time with women. So welcome, sir, and shout out to the ladies in the house tonight. Now I can get back focused. So I just remember at a very early age stepping into multiple leadership positions, even when I didn't have many resources or we were affiliated with groups that were meant to help us, like a homeless shelter, and still just finding it in my heart to want to give back, to want to serve others, and to simply do what I could to help to maintain structure or sing in a choir, volunteer in an usher board. So any place where I could lead and better yet serve others, I just became very interested at an early age. And when I entered foster care, my foster father was an elected official. Previously, he had served as a city council member in Alabama. And I knew then that I one day wanted to run for office. And so studied politics and government, worked on several campaigns after grad school, became a campaign manager like Rep Berg, ran for school board twice and won twice, and currently still serve on the school board. Became president and CEO of the Tacoma Urban League. I was a teacher for a number of years. And if that is not leadership, I can't tell you what is. And then eventually decided to run for a state senate, and here I am. But definitely my leadership journey has started with a desire to serve others and a willingness to use my voice to speak up when others did not feel comfortable. And that's what I plan to continue to do, lead with a servant heart, and fight for justice.
A servant heart. I've heard that before, and you are amazing. Thank you. And you will be missed on the Urban League side, but once an Urban Leaguer, always an Urban Leaguer, and it's an honor to also call you my friend and my soror. Thank you for being with us here today. Representative Taylor, can you tell us about your leadership journey? Now, I love my AKAs too. You are my sister in spirit. I will not be mad at that at all.
I do note that the two AKAs on this Zoom call are wearing red, and one of the deltas is wearing pink. So I love how we mix it up sometimes. Not by coincidence, maybe not. My leadership journey begins just like everyone else. When I was young, as a child growing up, I happened to be in a household with a two-parent household. And one of the earliest things that my parents instilled in me was public service. And in particular, in my household, I was the only girl. So my mom made it a point for me to be in girl-oriented programs. So I started with Girl Scouts. And I'm a lifetime member. I'm a third generation Girl Scout. And my mom was a Girl Scout in North Carolina when it was still segregated troops. So she is dedicated to that movement and showing leadership through, from being a fifth grader all the way up into adulthood. And it showed me how to speak to adults in ways that created advocacy. And then I carried that notion of women's leadership into college, and I happened to join Alpha Kappa Alpha. Again, legacy, there's a theme here. I love my mom in the way she had quiet leadership. It doesn't manifest the same way in all women, and particularly all Black women. My mom worked, full time, had 3 kids, had a husband who, was very successful on his own. And some of you may know him, my father is Dr. Quintard Taylor. And so how does she shape our family as he's doing the great things for the community? So how do we give back to community in different ways? And so living in the legacy of very strong-minded individuals is something that happened in my family. But I'd also want to share that, just because I lived in a 2-parent household, it didn't mean that I was immune to some of the community challenges. I'm a survivor of domestic abuse. I'm a survivor still coping with, being successful and having depression. A lot of times as Black women, we're not allowed to have other feelings that are not what the society lets us have, and being driven. So I got involved in all things. I got involved in Seattle Urban League Young Professionals, SULIP, back in the day, right when it was really beginning. And I feel like I'm too old to be a part of it. I just want to sneak into one of those events and just show that, being a part of these kinds of networking organizations helps you dive into communities in ways that you may feel disconnected, especially in the Pacific Northwest, where you may not have a lot of family here. So, getting involved in social justice organizations like the Urban League, NAACP, continue with women's organizations that I'm involved in now. It set me up for leadership and how to deal with failure, sometimes public failure. When I took the bar the first time, public failure. Everybody knew that I didn't pass because they make those announcements very publicly, but it showed me resilience and resistance to failure, that I could come back. And then it also set me up for when I wanted to run for office. I ran for city council, and unlike my sisters up here of elected officials, I failed on my first try. I think I'm the only person who failed on their first try to run for office. And yet I'm still here because I came right back, pretty much campaigned for 2 years straight. And one of those years was during a pandemic. And I ended up where I am as a state representative. So I buoyed myself into success despite failure. And that is something I see constantly with women. We're told no, we're told that we can't do it, and that it's not our time, or, don't be this or don't be that. So I'm sure we'll get into all of that later, but it really lends well into the work that we're doing in terms of legislating. And it's so amazing to work with these women as lawmakers, especially as part of the Black Members Caucus.
You came back strong, my sister. So you failed forward. So grateful to have you here, and so excited to have watched your journey. Representative Intamin, would love to hear your journey to get you to where you are today, and honored to have you with us.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate having the opportunity to be here to talk about women in leadership. My leadership journey was very similar to the women here on the panel. Started in my faith community, where you get your first opportunity to speak in front of a large group, learning your parts for the Sunday program, and moving on to being a youth usher and being in the choir and all of those things, and having those responsibilities. The first time I ran for office, which was in high school, I did not win. I ran for student body president and I lost in my senior year, but that did not deter me from wanting to be in office in some capacity. I volunteered in my children's schools as they were growing up, and then when they actually decided to go on their college journey, I had to make a decision about what I was going to do, and I actually wrote in my college essay, there is a thin line between OCD and a clean house. I think I had passed that line and I needed to do something else. And so I applied for school, started doing classes at Highline Community College, and then transferred to Seattle U. During that time, I was also working for the Children's Alliance as a volunteer, and then I created a work study position as I was there also, and then had the opportunity to do a session in the legislature as a session aide, and then was hired by Congressman Adam Smith to work in his office. And I worked for the congressman for 12 years, the last 3 as his district director. And then I decided to run for office myself in the 47th. We had a person who was representing, or was elected to represent the community, and I did not believe that he was doing it very well. And one of the things he had said on the House floor, which was to me the thing that made me run, was to talk about children who receive free and reduced price lunch, because I was one of those children in school. And he said that children were obese, that they wasted food, and if children were really hungry, teachers could take food out of the trash to give to those hungry children. And I thought, well, this person does not represent me, and I don't believe he represents the voices of the families in the 47th. And that was one of the reasons why, that was one of the main reasons why I decided to run. Also, I was encouraged to run by the then Speaker of the House, Frank Chop, who I was invited to a meeting with Pat Sullivan, who I knew but didn't know very well. And he said, oh, by the way, Frank's going to come to the meeting. And I thought, well, why is the Speaker of the House coming to have coffee with me? And of course, I learned that he was encouraging me to run and supported my candidacy. And I really do feel like I am simply a representative of the community, and the community is who leads. Thinking about the work that I'm doing now on police accountability and reforms for temporary aid for needy families and support for college students, especially food support and wraparound services. Those all came from things that I learned about in the community. So I really feel like the community is leading me, and I am just there to move their issues and agendas forward.
Thank you, Representative Intamin. One common thread I would say for all of you fabulous women is that you lead with your heart, and you are speaking up for those that feel like they don't have a voice, and that seems to be a common theme, be it children, be it folks in your community, and other women. So thank you for sharing your story with us. And I'm, again, honored. Some of those things I didn't even know. So an honor to share this space with you again. Our next question, we'll start with Representative Taylor. What are your current policy priorities, and why do those issues resonate with you? And perhaps you can also share why should those issues be important to all women in Washington?
Right now, the most significant legislation that I'm directly working on, well, there's a lot of things I'm voting for that I support, but there's one thing in particular that I'm working on day and night, and things get added to my plate. You know, when you do good work, you get more work. So I would say that housing justice right now with just cause evictions, and then helping us navigate our way out of the eviction moratorium, which thankfully has been extended through June 30th of this year. But that is probably not enough. And working on the bills to ensure that individuals and families have access to legal support if they are running into a jam. And as you can imagine, there are 200,000 families who are behind in rent because of the pandemic. And so we're in a crisis that is unlike any other time. And so the urgency to have protections for tenants. In my district, it's 49% renters. And so there's a lot of folks who may not understand that the eviction moratorium does not mean rent moratorium. Okay, it doesn't mean that you're free to have free living and there will not be enough rent support, the rental assistance for every single family who's behind. And so we have to have a process by which people can remain in their homes, because it has impacts on our public health response. It has impacts on folks being able to access school. It has impacts on you being able to get the next job and building and stabilizing communities. So for me, housing justice is really a key issue for me in this particular legislative session that I'm putting my energy in. But certainly a lot of things are under my plate, and I support that as the Black Members Chair, where we're definitely addressing police accountability. We've adopted all of the bills as our priority as part of the Black Members Caucus. And then, of course, housing justice, food justice, and economic recovery that's really inclusive, and not just talking over, folks who are most marginalized, because it had a disproportionate impact, especially on women. I mean, you think about how, folks thought, oh, women aren't important to the whole conversation of the economy. And then look what happened. Look what happened. And all hell breaks loose, excuse my language, because women are now pulled out of the labor market. Okay, so now we care about women? Okay, so you're going to care about women by the time we're done with this legislative session.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I might want to rephrase that question. What is one policy priority? Because I know that you all are managing a lot, especially right now in this virtual world. Representative Intamin, do you have a current policy priority that resonates, and why that might resonate with you, and how it is impactful to women across Washington State?
Well, I have had the opportunity to be a part of a police accountability work group this legislative session, and we had to trim down 600 bills that were proposed to about 30 pieces of legislation that we actually thought we could create and create a bill. And then we are now down to about 20 of those things that we hope to get through the legislative session, either this session or sessions to come. We had some short-term goals and some long-term goals. So if we talk about police accountability, I really think that public safety should be an equitable encounter for everyone, no matter what part of the state that you live in. And right now in Washington, that is not true. It is especially inequitable for African American people, especially young men. But I think all of us, whether we are sisters, mothers, aunties, grandmothers, should all be concerned about what happens when men in our families encounter the police. What we have learned and what we have seen through the unfortunate deaths of Manny Ellis, Che Taylor, Charlene Lyles, is that our police, no matter what part of the state they are in, either lack the training that is necessary so that they can make decisions that don't leave African American people dead after they encounter the police. And so what we are trying to do as a part of our police accountability work is to look at who we are training to be police officers, trying to have an account of if they have had trouble being police officers, so you can't go from one department to another. I have had the opportunity to sponsor an independent investigations bill that is from the governor's office as a governor's request legislation, where he created a task force, and from this task force there were ideas and thoughts that we worked together to turn into legislation. That legislation is now moving. It passed the House and it is now in the Senate, and it was exec today. And I honestly do not know what happened in executive session today because I've been so busy. But what I'm hoping is there haven't been any significant changes to that piece of legislation. It will get voted out and we will sign the legislation. So that is one of I'm working on a number of things, but those are the things that are at the forefront of this legislative session.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Intamin. Senator Nobles, what is one policy that you are working on that you can highlight? Because I know that there are many.
Thank you. Yeah, my focus this session is definitely education, amongst other things that were mentioned already. And that is, how we can educate the community around mental health, around police accountability, around workforce development, and the bills that I have proposed this session around education. One is a foster care point of contact. So youth who are experiencing foster care, that they have a point of contact at their school, at every school across this state. Someone responsible for knowing the youth at that school who are experiencing foster care's name, their needs, can be an advocate for them and work closely with the district liaison that every district should have, because that was already passed in legislation. And then also, I proposed a bill to expand access to the college-bound scholarship. So many folks may be familiar with this opportunity in 7th and 8th grade, where students can sign up for the college-bound scholarship. Well, each year we miss about 10,000 eligible students because there are many pieces of criteria to receive and be eligible to receive the scholarship. One of them is returning a pledge form. Middle schoolers having to return a pledge form. And as you can imagine, it's hard to get a field trip form. It's hard to get them to make their bed, clean their room, take their shoes off before they come in, whatever it is, let alone return a form that will determine funding for college, 5-6 years down the line. And so this bill removes the requirement of the college-bound pledge, but allows WASAC and schools to still do something ceremonial to acknowledge students are eligible, how much of an achievement and honor this is to have these funds, and students just need to do their part. But education remains critical. And to slightly respond to the question in the chat about community engagement, my education also extends to community members, where although I'm focused on policy, focused on budget and many other items as a legislator, educating community on the process of engagement is also important, and trying to find times outside of our 15-minute meetings and 2-minute testimony to connect with community and hear their issues, but also share more information on, like how to track a bill, how to write legislation, how bills die in this process. But just using my teacher hat my educator hat to continue to pass really important legislation, but also stay connected with the community as I learn from them and share things that community can also learn from me as a freshman legislator.
Thank you, Senator Nobles. Amazing work as well as always, Representative Berg. What policy can you highlight for us, and how does that impact the women across Washington State?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. So for me, education's also, just like Senator Nobles, kind of my wheelhouse. And so my policy priorities really do focus around education and reimagining what schools look like as we come out of this public health crisis. So when our students get back to school, it should and will look significantly different. One policy priority for me really started years ago with folks like Rep. Intamin, and that's our free and reduced lunch students. So right now we're feeding all of our students. We have to keep feeding all of our students. So one of my bills actually does away with the reduced price lunch fee, that 40-cent fee that we charge parents and students and families to do reduced lunch. My bill actually eliminates that. So it's making really good progress. Everybody sees the need, nothing like a good crisis, right? To show folks that people need to be fed. And so that's going to be a significant change when people get back to school. The other piece of it is menstrual equity. And I say this, I love that I'm talking to a group of women and one man holding it down, but look here, we need menstrual equity. Just like toilet paper, menstrual products should be free and available and accessible in all of our restrooms in our educational institutions, and I've written a bill to do just that. So K-12 and beyond, it will be in gender-neutral bathrooms. You will be able to find free, available, accessible period products. And one of the reasons that I did that was hearing from so many students, so many young women from across our state who really find that to be a problem. And one in particular, just to share this story, was doing a high-stakes test. In the middle of it, got her menses, could not access her backpack or would be considered cheating. Can you imagine? Had to sit through another couple of hours of that test without having the products she needed for that moment. What do you think she was thinking about? It wasn't the test. When our kids get back to school, they need to find a different type of education and reception. They need to be fed and they need to have all of the things available that they need to be successful. So most of my priorities, that's just two of them. And I know, Michelle, you said keep it to just a few. So those two I want to highlight for you because it's going to make a difference. And that's really been my focus as I've been in the legislature.
I appreciate that. Those are wildly important, and our kids can't focus if their bellies aren't full and if they don't have the things that they need to be successful. I mean, we've all know the mental task that the past year has put on us as adults. So I can only imagine what it's been like for our babies. So thank you for representing them, all of you, for sure. For those that are watching in the audience, if you have any questions for our fantastic leaders, please put them in the chat. And I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'll start with the questions from all of you. So the last question that I have, I'll start with Representative Intamin, is what have your experiences been as Black women, and all of you can chime in for sure, because we all have them, as Black women leading change in the legislature this session?
Well, I can say that my experiences have been mixed. There have been areas where I have been supported, and there have been other areas where I have not. I think that there are times in our society when men are thought of as ambitious and women are thought of as pushy. When men are thought of as creative and thinking outside of the box, and women are thought of as divisive. And so part of the work that I have been trying to do in the legislature is to get all of us, because we have a diversity of ideas and there is a diversity of people, and African-American people are not a monolith and we don't all have the same ideas, to get people to see that things that we recognize and admire in others, we should recognize and admire in each other. And so we have to think about our biases differently. first of all, we have to acknowledge that we have biases. Everybody has them. And then we need to work towards a collective process where we can acknowledge that we have differences, reconcile what those differences are, and then try to move forward on an idea. When I look at having a priority of diversity, equity, and inclusion in the Democratic caucus, that was a process that the caucus had to go through to get there. There were many people who were very concerned about the police accountability legislation because there were many reasons. Some were they were concerned about getting reelected. Some they thought that the police accountability legislation was anti-police. Other people thought that the police accountability legislation somehow talking about race was racist. There were just so many things that we had to overcome to get to where we are. So what I have learned about this session, about myself and about working in leadership, is that you can have all the great ideas in the world. If you can't bring people along with you, you will not make change.
Amen.
So.
Amen. If you think you're leading and you turn around, nobody's following you, you're just taking a walk, right? Representative Taylor, how about you?
So I've taken many a walk. You know, if you're outspoken and if you are a person who's told to, you know, you take up too much space and then you get self-conscious about that, or if you don't come in a package, you know, I will speak from a personal experience being a plus size woman. Like you shrink yourself, you know, figuratively to fit into the mold of how you should be received by those who don't think that you should be prominent in a room, that you should be invisible in a room, that just opening your mouth is the stereotype of whatever plus size woman that they have in their mindset, and that has done such a mind mess with me that I'm always questioning whether or not I'm buying myself when I'm talking about something. And if I don't see the head nods and the shakes, like at least an understanding, you don't have to agree, but at least an understanding. And so when you have, you know, folks who look like you are like, yeah, I get you, but I don't agree, but I get you, you know, having that affirmation is something that I've kind of needed in this leadership journey, because the blank stares and then the inaction is a frustrating process in lawmaking. And you're trying to advocate for your community, for your district, and for the folks that you know, put you into office, and then you're facing resistance by people who've never had to, you know, wonder whether they were going to pay their light bill, or whether they've been in the hospital and wondering if they will survive the medical treatment, let alone, you know, for me, I'm sometimes scared of doctors, and, you know, doctors to Black women is, you know, law enforcement to Black men in many, many ways. And so having the lived experience to talk about what's happening for you is real, and talking from a place of heart sometimes has you out by yourself, and people think, oh, you're not rational. No. I'm very rational in what I'm saying. I'm very animated in what I'm saying, because you are not listening to me when I'm doing it in the monotone, giving you data or whatever. You need to have all of it. The emotional experience, you need to have the anecdotal data, and we have the statistical data. So stop playing. Let's get this done.
Amen. Thank you. Representative Berg.
Yeah, it's so being a Black woman in leadership in the legislature, I think for me, you know, I think Rep. Taylor and Rep. Inman covered it so well, right? The not being a monolith, and really trying to comport yourself to the space that you're in while still trying to be true to your convictions. That's all a piece of it. What I want to touch on is really not having that deficit mindset. I think, and I don't want to be accusatory, but I think that in this moment of racial conversations and equity inclusion conversations, you start realizing that folks really do have a deficit mindset when they talk about race and equity and inclusion. And so ergo, You know, people sometimes think that whatever they do for you, be it holding open a door or helping usher a policy through, is wow, you know, we really helped you come up from where you were. And so I think part of the challenge is making folks understand that we are where we are because of who we are, right? Our educational experience, our lived experience, our social capital, our maybe even our financial capital. It's just not approaching us as a monolith and with a deficit mindset. And I say that because I've had specific experiences where I was in a forum and folks were talking about food security, a passion of mine, and then they started talking about equity. And basically it all of a sudden got conflated, right? So I help at my local food bank, ergo I help Black people. Now imagine that. Now, yes, at your local food bank, you may help a Black family, or you may help a white family, or you may help a family of a variety of different descents. But because you are helping in a space where there is need does not mean that the entirety of the Black community has that need. And that's a really hard thing for a lot of folks to understand, contextualize, and live. So for me, being in this moment as a leader, I'm trying to have folks understand that not only are we not all, you know, poor and impoverished, but we've got capital that I think people are just now starting to understand, but that we you know, represent a diversity of areas as a result. So to have someone in the 30th and the 44th, and if you look at our districts are not predominantly Black districts. Most, you know, so that tells you something. We've been here for decades doing the work, living the life, and now we're representing our community, and that means something. So it's a challenge, but it's also an opportunity, and I just greet it with pleasure every morning.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you for the answer and for your service. Senator Nobles.
Thank you. I certainly agree with what has been said before. And I think as someone who grew up predominantly in Alabama and Georgia, who grew up in a predominantly Black community in a fairly segregated city, who grew up in a Black Baptist church and became a member of a Black sorority and led a Black social justice and civil rights organization, the Tacoma Urban League. Regardless of us being a monolith or not, it is important in every space that I have the backs of Black folks like me, that other people who feel like love for being Black and loving Black people offends them is a problem of their own and not my problem to solve. But wherever I am, it's important for me to be proud of who I am, proud to be there, to feel entitled to be there, to know that it is just as much mine as anyone else. I'm not here or there to fit in or to become what other people need me to become, but we are qualified Black women who love our community, who are here, as far as I'm concerned, because this is where God needs me to serve. And I want to make sure that in this space, I work well with my colleagues, especially those who are my fellow Black members. There is a Black members caucus that is filled with House members, and they have graciously invited me as the only Black member on the Senate side. And so for probably the first time ever, the Black members caucus is bicameral. And to me, that's community. It is being inviting, having each other's back. There are too few of us to be divided. And so I agree with Rep. Taylor, where we don't necessarily have to agree, but we need to be supportive of each other. And that is how I grew up. That is what I know and the work that I do. It doesn't matter how different we are Black in America. So we can have straight hair, curly hair. We can be, we can be the good Negro all we want to be, but we are Black in this country. And so we better have each other's back, because this country will likely not have ours. So it's been a joy and a pleasure to serve in the state Senate, to serve in the legislature, to learn from very brilliant individuals, and to know that I am here because I was elected to be here, because my community wants me to be here, and more importantly, because we get to add more representation in our legislature and allow it to begin to look more like the state that it serves. So here we go. I'm happy to be here.
You all were created for such a time as this, and I'm so thrilled that you are there representing us and doing this hard work. And I know it is hard, but y'all sure make it look easy, and do it with so much grace and so much strength and power that it's inspiring. So thank you. Thank you for that. We have about 10 minutes left. And so I'm gonna pose a couple of questions from our audience tonight. Martha Ramos. Hi, Martha. Glad you are here. Her question, and any one of you can answer, is it possible to include community voices during the whole legislative process, especially while it is virtual? We only had 1 to 2 minutes during each hearing in committees, but it was only, was the only time. After the executive committees and members kept adding amendments, negotiations, and the bill passed. 1 second, I'm trying to scroll down.
I can tell you.
Oh, go ahead, Martha.
Thank you. I'm really happy to see you again, some of you. And I think that the frustration for me, and let me add not only the plus size, but the English as a second language and your accent does make it worse. But basically, I think that the idea is that we're talking about the process. We worked really hard for the year community, and we passed through the Law and Justice Committee a bill that was not everything we want, but was enough for us. After that, they passed through different committees. We never have a chance to have an opportunity to speak again or to have an input. Emails and phone calls and nobody answered, and we don't know who they read. And then passing through the different committees and the floor, the Senate and the floor, the bill completely changed. And we know why changed for the lobbyists and the collection agencies. For us, it's not just, I wrote it, it's not just a bill. We are talking about being stopped for having a driver license suspended for our community, people of color. You know, what we call driving while poor, driving while black, driving while Latino. Could be the stop that gets somebody killed. Could be the stop that gets somebody deported. You know, we are not, it's not just a little, oh, they're driving. We are talking about the safety of our community. And at the end, the bill passed, and now it's in your hands, lady. It's in the house. The bill passed, but was different amendments and negotiation there last minute. But one of the sentence and one of the amendments is reverting everything that we did before. And it's a stop. And I work part of the grant too of the Fines and Fees Justice Committee. It's a nationwide grant that we have here to deal with fines of fees in our community. And they are telling us that they don't support the bill. They will not put Washington as one of the progressive states that is now stopping the suspension. Because if you read the bill in detail, that sometimes people don't have the time to, it's reverted. They will not consider our state one of the progressive states that stopped that, because the whole legislation, how it's now, is reverting what it is. Our hope is that we can make a small amendment in the House and pass into reconciliation, and we're still working with the senators to stop getting in the pockets of the collection agency. We were teasing to say, how much money they give you? We can go in the community and get the same. Maybe we can match with the lobbyists, or maybe we can have an input. But for me, I dedicate a year of that. I'm retired. This is my full-time, no paid job for the last year and a half. But because I see the consequences of people being deported and people being killed. And I'm really serious about that. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Anyone from the House can give any remarks on that question?
So first I'm going to say that, so the bill was in the House, the bill was in the Senate, and there have been amendments added to the bill, and it is now coming to the House. So first we need to know what committee it's going to be heard in the House.
It is in the transportation.
So I am on
the hearing, and the hearing will be Monday at 3:30.
Okay, so what you need to do is now, just like you work the bill on the Senate side, it would be helpful for you to work the bill on the House side. So you need to find an advocate, a person like myself, who is on transportation, to see if we can add an amendment to undo the amendment in the Senate.
That will be great. And we're saying the other things we say, we know that we cannot have it like was. We cannot undo everything because it was so much. But at least we wanted to do maybe some simple change that will
So I'd be happy to
stop.
talk to you about this particular piece of legislation. I will put my contact information in the
Please
chat.
do.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you,
But this is a great opportunity for people to understand, how a bill becomes a law. I know we have these ideas about committees, and we have the bills, and we get someone to be a champion and an advocate for our bill, but we have a bicameral legislation, which means it has to go through the House and the Senate. So you can make all your friends that you want in the Senate, but you got to make some in the House as well, because you want folks in the House also to carry your bill. You want folks in the House to also be able to undo things that were done in the Senate that you didn't like. So make friends on both sides of the aisle. That's important. Makes it people and on both sides of the House, so that you can track your bill and watch your bill. And it is a bill. It's not a finished bill. It's not finished until it is signed by the governor. That's another thing that people need to understand. Yes, I am really happy that bills that I have gone through the House and they are now in the Senate. I'm hoping, and I have advocates that I have over in the Senate, that my bills won't change. I'm hoping that my bills won't change. And if we do, we can have reconciliation. I can say, no, we don't want that, or no, I do want this. But that is all hope. And then there is the behind the scenes work that we do, talking to our colleagues in the Senate and gaining support from our colleagues in the House, so that as your bill comes to the Transportation Committee, which you say it's going to be heard on Monday. So who is the sponsor of your piece of legislation?
In the Senate with Senator Solomon. And here, I know
so
that
it's still Senator Solomon's bill. So now we know. So now I will know what to look for. I will know to look for Senator Solomon's bill, and it's 5226.
yes,
The bill number. Okay.
yeah,
So
we have a lot of sponsors, but he was the main.
So I will take a look. I will put my information in the chat. We can talk offline,
Yeah.
and we can see what we can do in the House to undo that particular amendment that you don't like.
So I think what may be helpful is to bring it back up to the 10,000 foot. And for those who are interested in the process, I need to shout out Senator Nobles for hosting a How a Bill Becomes a Law training or information session on Tuesday night. And she's going to go through all of this process. I'll be on the panel with her. So I'll be asking all the dumb questions. This is a great opportunity to come and learn, and it'll be recorded. So if you're not available on Tuesday night, do watch it and see how we're kind of unpacking it from a live perspective. Because some of the things that you're talking about, we learned on the job, and like, oh wait, I've got to navigate this differently as a legislator than I would if I was a community advocate. And there are a lot more ways to engage with the process than is obvious. So
can you share with how they can join that?
Yes,
Senator Nobles. No, Senator Nobles will put it in the chat because I know she's going to.
Perfect.
It's a great Facebook event. Everybody should definitely attend.
Thank you. I want to try to get in at least one more question before we close tonight. And this one, Representative Berg, on the menstrual equity topic from Yvonne Gallardo. Any chance this could include also include a long-term product like the Diva Cup instead of something that is disposable and only a one-time use product?
That is a fantastic question. Thank you so much, Yvonne. And I hate to give you this answer, but it absolutely won't. Part of the mission of this bill is that we're making period products like toilet paper. And you know that awesome quality toilet paper you get in public restrooms, at schools, and at different areas. That's kind of the goal. We want it there for use, but it's not there for comfort. That said, we are working with amazing advocates at the Red Sea Menstrual Equity and the Period Project. And I love, love, love reusable menstruation products and talking to the community about them and how to get access to them in an affordable way, and making those more accessible. But for this specific piece of legislation, it's going to go into public and private schools and institutions where it's going to probably be right around that same quality as toilet paper to get folks from point A to point B. But part of that and the reasoning for that, you'll hear in some of the testimony around the bill. And I know the last question had something about, you only got 1 or 2 minutes to testify. Part of that is because of the amount of bills that we hear. And so when I went through the testimony on my bill and I heard some of our partners, our young women, talking about the importance of this, they actually pointed out, they were like, look, we want it to be as low quality as possible so that we can get more of it in more bathrooms, because that makes it more economical. So great question. Wish I had a better answer, but I'm hoping all the menstruating individuals out there, do use reusable products because it's the best thing for our environment.
Thank you. And thank you, Senator Nobles, for sharing that information in the chat. Unfortunately, we don't have any more time for more questions, but we are so thrilled and so honored for you all taking the time to join us today. All of you all are public figures, and so if anyone is interested in connecting with our wonderful representatives and legislatures, you can find them. They're all very much active on social media and are also very much approachable in their offices, so you can find them all for further questions or discussions. On behalf, again, of the other 8 women that I have the privilege of serving with on the Washington State Women's Commission, and our director and our governor, thank you so much for sharing your time with me, with us, your stories, and your journey with us. And I hope that we get to do this again. And this is not just because it is Women's History Month, but it's because you guys are all powerful women and powerful leaders representing all of us. You didn't have to lead from the front, but we're so honored and grateful that you do. And thank you so much for your time tonight. And thank you all for joining us. I hope you got something out of this conversation this evening, and hope to see you again at our next event. Have a wonderful evening.